And with so many rapid developments in technology, the role that we play on behalf of our members is more important now than ever before. We're forging some really important alliances with organisations across the UK and globally to raise expectations. That's very much at the heart of what we're doing. So we're delighted to be working alongside Matt Cohen and the team from PlaySpace Health, learning about best practice and tools and technology that makes online therapy really engaging, raising those standards and those expectations, and really learning about designing the sort of tools that are creative and practical and relevant and accessible. So I'm a child and adolescent psychotherapist, and I've worked online since COVID. I designed my own virtual playroom back in 2020 when COVID left so many of us just sort of outside of our own real life playrooms. But I can't resist the invitation to play. Yeah, I'm sort of a very excited kid at heart, and I can't bear seeing when someone's got better toys than me. So when I came across the invitation to play on PlaySpace Health's virtual playrooms, I was there like a flash. But what I love about the PlaySpace Health guys is that they're so passionate about doing so much more than just creating tools. When we got chatting about my goals as a professional and my role at ACTO and about their goals as an organisation, we just knew that we've got so much that we could be able to bring and share through our organisations. And so, yay, here we are. And I'm really pleased that we are where we are today. So what have we got for us tonight? Well, I'd ask that you respect the intellectual property and the work that has gone into what Matt is going to be sharing today very generously. And if you are going to sort of share and have conversations, we're hoping that you'll be really excited and have lots of conversations about what we're talking about today, some really important subjects. So yes, if you are chatting about it, please do offer up a credit. If you're going to be sort of writing or emailing or sharing in any way, it's just sort of, yeah, giving a bit of respect to the work that's gone into what we're going to be talking about today. There will be a recording of this event that will be available, and certainly to ACTO members via our website. So other than introducing yourself in the chat, and if you haven't done that already, then yes, please do jump in, introduce yourself in the chat. There are a couple of Zoom polls that will come up a bit later as well. So yes, please do jump in, share how you're feeling, answer those questions. Let us get a feel for how you're thinking about what's being shared. So yes, and please do add your questions and comments in the chat as we go along. We will be looking at that all the way through. We won't be stopping to answer them as we go along though. So if you've seen that you sort of put a question in the chat and you think, oh, no one's answering, we're scooping them up, we're amalgamating them. Right at the end, we will have a lovely, healthy, long time for discussions and Q&A. So yeah, Matt will go straight through his presentation. We'll have a break and then we'll come back for some questions and answers and some discussions. So yeah, really looking forward to that. And then finally, to end off our evening, we'll have a little bit of a summary and a few comments from either our ACTO chair or co-chair this evening, just to end us all as we get ready to leave. So, almost there. We're going to be dealing with some very important topics, some really emotive topics as well tonight. I'm so excited. But please do take a moment to look after yourselves in this space. Please be respectful of others and remember a professional level of online etiquette when we're responding. We will, as moderators, take steps to make sure that this space is a safe space for everyone. So on that note, enjoy and engage, and I'm going to hand you over to Matt Cohen from PlaySpace Health.
Great, thank you. And let me just share my screen to make sure everyone's following along. Is everyone able to see my screen now? Great. So I guess before I get started, the context of this presentation was actually born out of the working to develop the presentation. And it was working with people, you know, like Leslie and those at ACTO, that we were asking, you know, when are you available? They were asking us when we were available to be able to serve them. And we're going, hold on, you're asking us when we're available. When are you available? We're here to serve you, and you're the important one in the conversation because you get to make the decisions and have the control. And it was that, to me, misunderstanding of the leverage and the opportunity that that exists for therapists that actually drove this conversation. So this is not one for my investors. This is one because it's not about us. This is one that's, I mean, we're included, but it's more around how we believe that therapists can put themselves at the center of the conversation so that they can benefit. And we're going to talk about our approach and what we're doing as well. But that's really the purpose of this today. Oh, let me. So I've been working in the digital health space for a long time. I was part of the founding team of what was the first digitally native TAI CBT, online ICBT with Therapist Assist, and we created a full care continuum in Canada. And as I am someone that I have BPD, borderline personality, bipolar 2, ADHD, and we can continue with the WebMD, but the point is for someone like me, mental health is managed, not cured. And when I was working on a project in COVID in the mental health space, my therapist of 20 years came to me and said, Matt, now we do Zoom and it's totally fine and you sit on your couch. But when you first came in 20 years ago, you crossed your arms and wouldn't talk to me. And it was through board games and art and things like that that we were able to develop the rapport. And now I'm holding up tic-tac-toe on a screen and it's not working. Is there anything out there that's secure, that has the sensitivities and considerations that are important to me? And I looked and there wasn't any. And to me, when I then looked at where the business side of things were going, it's mostly 16 plus providership models and things like that. And no one was listening to her. And so that's really where this spun out of and why I'm extremely passionate about this. And so I wanted to just ask which of the following issues have been experienced. And if you've experienced a number of them, then say that, because this is something that we're hearing from therapists consistently that we talk to, and specifically post-COVID, is that finding affordable service providers that are consistent and reliable is a challenge. There's digital platforms, we might be one of them, that have a steep learning curve. And so I always use the example when you're getting a Gmail, it's not to learn Gmail, it's to send an email. And if you can't do that easily, then it's a problem. Outdated practice management solutions that don't reflect how people transact today. There's a lot of regulations that are changing both from the online privacy and security, but then also as we're adopting hybrid care. People are saying there just aren't the services that they need, which is something we're trying to address. And then obviously ACTO is stepping up in this department, but where there's not necessarily the business management to actually build a profitable practice. And therefore, you're either extending your time or doing other things that ultimately, having you work harder rather than smarter. And so how do I click end poll here? Or no, is it open? So if everyone can if you've experienced any or all of those, we'll give a few seconds here for everyone to respond to the poll. And I should say it's also just interesting to us when we do these types of polls to see the mix of where people are experiencing, because sometimes you see very consistent trends and others, it's a bit unique. I'll give it another minute here. Okay, get your last answers in. I'm going to close it now, if that's all right. Okay, I'm sharing results. Can everyone see them, or is it me that has them? I don't know. Everyone can see?
It's just you at the moment.
Oh, it's just me. Can everyone see my screen? I'll pull it up here.
can see your screen.
Great. Let me make this just a little bit bigger. Okay, so it seems, yeah, there's not enough solutions. Definitely some business management in the complex with steep learning curves. Affordable pieces definitely too, but yeah, I think yeah, this is what we've been seeing is really consistent. And we'll talk about especially the learning curve and why that's a problem, but we need to discuss really why that's a problem and how it can be solved. And so let me, I guess, stop this now and we'll continue. So therapy, and I should say, I'm a business person. I'm not a therapist. I have no clinical training. I'm a patient and a beneficiary of all the work that you guys do. But being a business person, we look for inefficiencies as opportunity to both create financial success and or other success. And what's happening is therapy is amongst the most inefficient markets that I've ever come across in my life. And I say that because no one seems to really be winning. The therapists that we speak to, and I'm not sure, I mean, there's clearly things that you relate to, there's a lot of challenges that you guys are experiencing. But then when you're thinking about some of these innovative businesses, let's take a Talkspace, for example. They have to be able to build what's needed for you. They have to be able to build what's needed for the patient. They have to acquire the patient. They have to have you. They have to then serve insurers. They have to then serve governments. They have to then serve. And if you actually start thinking about all the stakeholders that you need to serve, let alone what the products and services are, it becomes really challenging. Moreover, there's only so many people that are willing to make, $50 for that clinical hour or 30 pounds for that clinical hour, where the business takes the rest. And so while there's a massive opportunity, it's very hard for these companies to scale. And so what ends up happening is that these businesses have great returns for their investors, but then those investors leave and oftentimes there's not much left. And it's therapists that are just going through between this platform and trying this platform and not winning, where investors get to win along the way. And that's where it's really important that we make sure that therapists are able to earn more rather than working more and just benefiting businesses. And part of this conversation is really employing therapists to be part of the conversation and part of the solution rather than expecting business to solve it. Because if business is going to solve it, they're going to solve it for them. They're not going to solve it for you. And we see that because all these companies are raising money. And if I can just for a second, just explain the process here, and I'm going to talk fast, and if you miss something, it's okay. But a company like ours, you start as a pre-seed company where you're trying to look for a product market fit with an MVP. You're usually doing it on a safe, ultimately to get to a seed round where you're trying to get your first institutional investor. Either it's going to be priced or it's not. And then you're going to go towards your Series A, which actually has a real VC that's institutional. And they might do a Series B lead or not. And then Series C and Series D is oftentimes when private equity comes in and then the VCs get their money and they leave and then private equity's in. And then they do a couple more rounds, take their money, and then go public and then they're out of it. And then that's where they get their secondary. And I can keep going here. But no one probably followed 90% of what I said. And that's the problem. There's so many people making money along the way in this journey that you guys are the guinea pigs and the payers throughout it without getting that benefit. And so we need to change the paradigm in the conversation of what's happening here. Otherwise, it's going to be these big companies creating the opportunities and benefiting from it. And so we are trying to really push for therapists to understand the leverage they currently have. Prior to, let's say, 2015, employers were not talking about mental health. We were not talking about children being impacted by social media with their mental health. We weren't talking about it. And so it was kind of an underground market. And now it's one of the most forward conversations that are being had. It's truly in vogue. And economics 101 is when there's demand, way more demand for something than there is supply of something, then it's the supply that's able to dictate terms. So if there's way more demand for a product than there is, let's say, supply of that, then you can increase the cost of that product. But what's happened is that healthcare is a collection of micro markets. So there's no collective voice to represent all of these individuals that have traditionally been working, underground because it hasn't been part of the broader system. And so there isn't really a way for therapists to necessarily take advantage of that voice. And so you become the term takers to someone like potentially us if we were taking a different approach, rather than the term setters for us. And that's just backwards. And so when I ask, or when it's about a meeting, it's we're available at this time and this time, not when are you available or what can we do, because we need you. I'm not a therapist. Well, I don't use this. I can't, like, that's not what it's about. And so we are trying to say that, like, you guys have to be the partner to us and contribute to the future that you guys want. We know that not every therapist nor any individual is able to solve their problems and have the answer. They only know sometimes the problems or some of the pieces that are important. But this is where we have to try to match where those that are able to translate the problem into a meaningful solution to do so, and not hope that I can get it right without any clinical basis. I'm not saying we don't. We obviously have clinical advisors and people, but I'm for argument's sake. And so we, as a company, and this is where I'll just introduce us here, we are trying to be a partner in making care accessible for children and teens by delivering in-person attraction and engaging virtual experiences. As I mentioned, it all started when this became something at my doorstep by my therapist. And now it's translated into what is a real business because there hasn't been anyone that is really listening and being the partner to therapists who feel that they're either don't have a voice or that their voice isn't being heard and enacted upon. And so, here we go. And so what our platform is, just to put it in general terms, is an opportunity for therapists to use what they have in their playrooms in a virtual environment. We have multiplayer games, some of which you're seeing now, where you can play together, or actually this is a single player game, and there's multiplayer games as well, that you can play together in a room, and it's very dynamic in terms of what there is. We can show demos to anyone that's interested, and we'll talk about it. But we also have storybooks, worksheets, and things that you can work on together while you're in session, and create as well, which I'll get into after. But it's really an opportunity to say that Zoom is not for everyone, and we need to create what we have in person and do it virtually, including our sand tray, which is something that is very popular in person across therapeutic areas, but hasn't existed. And so we've essentially enabled therapists to create sort of customized virtual environments with many types of games, some of which we've built, some of which we've partnered on, and curate that for the various patients and populations and contexts that they're serving them in. I'm just going to keep clicking through. We have a couple of videos here to go through. This is now creating a playroom. So there's different ages, different activities you might want. You might want to personalize it. My team has been very generous in personalizing this for me, so I can feel comfortable in my playroom, with my picture or maybe my dog on the wall. But ultimately, you're able to now have this as an experience together. And outside of, let's go ahead here. Yeah, outside of this, there's the opportunity where you can change the playroom. You can decide which games are in it, which activities you want, all those sorts of things. Oh, is it I think it's going again here. And then we had basically a slide builder tool, but my therapist doesn't know how to sign into her email. And so she said, is there a way for you to help me make these better? Because I like to create stories. And we said, sure. Let's just create an AI storybook builder. And of course, there's a lot when you're bringing in AI, and this is not in a session, you have to preview it before, but we created an AI storybook builder so you can create, whether it's a wetting the bed, whether it's for a specific use case, and then customize it thereafter and be able to use it. So this is the idea that some people are great at creating, some people need the support, but until we hear, what those challenges are on that next level, we're not able to help. And this is a perfect example of one where we were given a problem and we were able to solve for it. What we're trying to do is partner with high quality assets that exist today and build the therapeutic resources and tools that don't exist today. So I don't need to build a new tic-tac-toe that exists today. However, there was not a good sand tray that was good in virtual environments and or in person, and we need to do things like that. And so we are working with organizations like Spin Master and Mattel, where we are licensing their assets and distributing them in our environment. So you can use things like Paw Patrol, Barbie in the dollhouse, and think with their diverse characters to be able to relate to children. And I should mention, we're speaking to many others, but those are in different stages of conversations where these ones are we can speak upon. But that's really what we're trying to focus on. And ultimately, that is where we need the support, and other organizations like us that take this approach would need that same support. And so what we're doing with this, and this is sort of what it all culminates in, is we're launching what is ACTO Beta Space. This is an opportunity for essentially ACTO members and those that are forward thinking, that want to try different tools and want to give feedback, to actually guide the development of our business and our product. What doesn't make sense to me is that we have to get it perfect and then essentially prescribe it to you to validate that we got it right and sell. You're in at the conversation at the end, not at the beginning. And so what we want to do is we want to sort of democratize the access to some great tools and allow you to be able to inform how those should be built upon and what would make those something you'd be willing to pay for, such that others can benefit from it who might not be able to help themselves. So, for example, we have in our platform virtual reality games, like many virtual reality games integrated. Really cool, like 30 of them. If you go on PlaySpace today, you will not see one. Not because we don't think any of these games are amazing, but because we know that if you're going to use this in a virtual setting and it doesn't work that one time, we lose that trust. Or if, let's say, that our partner has an ad that they've added now in their product to generate revenue, and now you're in a session and you see an ad. That can never happen. And for us to make sure we have the utmost sort of security and the best experience, and especially the sensitivities, we're holding ourselves to that standard. But with that said, I show someone like Leslie that I have 30 VR games integrated in our platform that she does not see. And it makes her mental because she would love to be able to test those and try those. And we would love for her to be able to do that and to give that advice. So what we're doing is we're creating a free community that is the ACTO beta space for your members to be able to try tools and technologies that and help us translate those into what is going to be a saleable product down the line, but also an impactful product. And also where if there's interesting tools that you guys find that you would like to test in this type of environment, let's go to the next one. In this type of environment, we can easily input it without having to worry about all the refinement and things that would be needed to scale this across the world. And so, again, this is our dollhouse. It's not released because it's actually been in beta testing with some of our champions, but this is in the ACTO beta space amongst everything else. So it's really just a clearinghouse where we're able to do that. But moreover, it's also an opportunity for ACTO members to be able to share and collaborate. In our platform, we have a general community where therapists are able to share worksheets, playrooms, stories, anything that they have in the platform with each other. And you're able to go to the community, see what has been created, add it to your templates, and iterate upon it. Within the ACTO beta space community, there is now the ability for you guys to share things with each other without it being in our large community to really advance the conversation and help make sure what we're doing is meaningful and impactful to you. And that really gets to the bigger conversation here that I'm trying to promote, which is the power of community. We talk about critical mass, power in numbers, purchasing power, you name it. It's powerful. It's leverage. And when you're by yourself, your voice might not be heard, and you might not be given that credit or respect that you deserve. But when you get together, there is power in numbers. And that is what's needed to be able to ensure that what's in your interest is going to be realized across the spectrum. And the absence of that voice and that collective creates the sort of that vacuum for business and others to take advantage of the inefficiency. And so, just as an example of this, I was looking to buy a Surface Hub for conferences because we would love for people to play on our sand tray at conferences and show it and create this amazing experience. But when I looked up the hub, these are US dollars, it starts at 10,000 US dollars. That's without the camera. It's about 15,000 all in US dollars. And so I, as a tech company, was saying we can't afford that. And then I went, hold on a second. If we can't afford it, then how is it that this type of technology would ever be in my therapist's playroom? And if it's not, then that's really sad, because then something like our sand tray is limited to, an iPad, and that's not great. And so we spoke to the manufacturers in China that have the patents to develop this or manufacture this technology, and got quotes for if we bought it in bulk, what we'd be able to replicate that for ourselves if we made it. And so this is now a new poll where I'm asking what people would expect to get a discount. Let's say ACTO were to do something for everyone where they were going to buy in bulk and give a discount and get a discount for volume. What would everyone expect that discount to be for the volume? Another 30 seconds here. Okay, I'll end the poll and share results. So this is what we're getting here. So can everyone see the results here? So only one person was close. The reality is that we are launching this as a result, and it's 92% savings. And so that's, and this is now in euros, but that's the reality, is that if you actually are going to make, and trust me, dealing with China, like it's not fun. But what I'm saying is that the benefit of that is transformative, because now this can be in your playroom and we can unlock tremendous possibilities that would otherwise be inaccessible. And so we can make things accessible that otherwise wouldn't be with numbers. And that's the same with things like Spin Master and Mattel. They're not wanting to partner with me to serve our therapists in Ontario that are delivering care. They're wanting to partner with PlaySpace, who are distributing this around the world and democratizing access to that. So we're, as a result of our own business challenge, we are now actually producing these and selling them at cost for those that get a PlaySpace subscription, because it shouldn't be that you have to spend this and that therapists should be out in what's happening here. But I wanted to show this because it's just, it reflects the dynamics that exist in the marketplace today. And unfortunately, whether it's a practice management platform or someone like us, if you guys, join and pay and support us, what's to stop us from increasing pricing 300% in 2 months, or in 2 years when you have everything on our platform and now it's a nightmare to get it off? That isn't reasonable. That's not fair. And you don't have the opportunity to set terms to protect yourself if you don't have any power in numbers or community. And that's that's what this is really about. And so community drives progress. And what we're trying to do is leverage that community to show that it drives progress. And we're doing it in 3 ways with ACTO, which is amazing, both for us and hopefully is valuable to yourselves as well. One is the focus groups that we'll get into, and one is that we have the beta space, and the other is just accessing PlaySpace for your own practice. But I'll first start with the focus groups. We have 2 focus groups. One is the beta space feedback, and then one is a community of practice where we're talking about integrating technology. They are different in nature. One is about specific features and elements and actually how beta space can be leveraged and what needs to be added. But the other one is how do we really integrate technology and what are the pieces, what are the challenges, what are the opportunities in doing so? Beta space, as we talked about, is really about giving you the seat at the table. We're unlocking everything, letting everyone under the hood and saying what works, what doesn't work. And if you're someone that wants to contribute to that, please help my therapist benefit from your effort. And lastly, we do have outside of beta space, what is the platform that I showed and is compliant and is streamlined and will continue to be that refined offering for anyone to use in their practice. And through ACTO, there is a discount and a trial and everything to be able to allow individuals to be able to deploy this in their practices, whether individuals or clinics. And so we have here, if you want to join us, you can look at the QR code. But I did just warn.
We temporarily lost Matt, I think. Diana, are you online?
He just disconnected. He's gonna, yeah, 1 second.
Okay, perfect.
Do you want to use mine? He's about to show us something very exciting.
It's the EastEnders for all you UK-based people. You know what I'm talking about.
Before I thought Leslie and team was going to kill me. Now my team is going to kill me, but okay. I just needed to show this because we actually yesterday got our first sample of our board. And so I just wanted to just quickly show it because I'm having so much fun in being a child again. And I just thought that would be a great sort of end before we break and do that to be able to show what we have. So that's where I was just trying to get out of here. So, oh, it's turning on now. But this is the first sample of the PlaySpace board for the tablet. And I just thought it'd be great to show because it's, again, just really fun. And I'm having a good time with it, only for a second. And this is where, oh, I don't know if I can hear. It's just, it translates what we have in person and allows you to do it in different fun ways. So let's just take the sand tray, for example, that we have. Also, I can't hear anyone. I don't know if anyone can hear me. Maybe people are muted, but it's just, it's really, oh, to do that. Anyways, just really fun. Oh, and there's a pen for things, just fun stuff. But what's cool is there's also a 4K camera in it. It's a 4K screen. It's actually its own computer. This is not connected to anything. And so this is where it's it's just really fun. And you can either have it on a wall and be able to engage with individuals like I am now, or otherwise. And
Matt, you're muted.
We could for most of it,
oh,
just now.
anyways, that's one option. We know that that's where the table comes into play, because that's a waterproof table, bang-proof table, and everything with a great touch experience. And not everyone wants that. But the point is that we got it yesterday. Really fun. I just wanted to show it. So with that, let me pause. I'll stop. And maybe everyone deserves a little break.
I am I'm beyond jealous, Matt. Just of as I said, you know, in the introduction, I'm a big kid at heart, and the idea that you now have something which is better than I could ever imagine, but accessible is just so exciting. So yes, thank you so much for talking us through just the tip of the iceberg of some really important thoughts around a whole business model and structure that is just broken and not in our favor, but some really exciting ways that we can be together as community and really leverage that on some big scale conversations and some very practical differences that we can make even just in our own practices. So yes, amazing. Bassi and Karen, I wondered if there's anything that you wanted to add before we consolidate, take a few minutes of a break, and think about some other questions and things that we maybe want Matt to go over or add to the chat. Or but yeah, before we go
Yeah,
have a bit of a break.
there was a comment from Judith. She said, this is great. If we can have the opportunity to play with these things, we're unlikely to do it live with our clients because of not being familiar with the technology. So opportunities for us to get it wrong and gain the knowledge and how it works in this way is great, which I thought was interesting. And Catherine AS, your surname, I know you've got two parts, haven't you? Is there a feeling yet for when the games might be ready to be released? And I just wanted to ask a two-pronged question, Matt, which you may want to answer later. Is one, adaptation for adult clients, and two, around safeguarding and confidentiality. I know a lot of therapists are nervous about AI-generated stories, ownership, that sort of thing. So those are the things that came up to me. It was good I wasn't in the meetings. Lots of things came up for me. So those are the things so far.
So let me just answer just those couple pieces first, and then we'll get more, like we can do more of the Q&A after. But just to say, in terms of the games, I just want to be clear that the platform that we showed, with the exception of VR and the Dollhouse, that is live. And that is what is paid for today by customers. And we have customers all over the world, whether individuals, clinics. We actually have the largest franchise clinic network in the world also using this. They mostly work with children and teens. And so that is what exists. Then there's the beta space, which has things that have not been released, but now everything is going to be released in that. And that is free. That's to be used outside of sessions. If you want to use that, if there's something you want to try in a session for your purposes or to benefit us, then that can happen. But the idea is that anything that isn't released in what is a paid subscription is available in beta space for trial and feedback, so we can translate it into what is something that people will pay for. Our view is that we should not be asking therapists to be paying for things that non-therapists are building or designing. It should be that therapists are telling us what they're willing to pay for, and us sort of meet that mark to do so. And then around compliance, that's really important. We are global, which is unique in business, in healthcare, but it doesn't mean we're in every geography. We have specific geographies that we're in, and we have to take a local approach to anything that touches PHI, personal health information. And so we have, for example, some integrations with games where there's no access to personal health information related to that, but we have a secure, obviously, connection to them. anything where there's personal health information is compliant. Full stop. That's number one. And that's the point. There are culture building conferencing solutions for companies to play games. Like we could, like if we could take those and I could have offered that to my therapist as a compliant solution with the sensitivities, that would have been great, but it's not. And what I'll say is one thing I didn't mention is it's not just about the games and around those, like the availability of many things. It is the nuance of the therapeutic considerations that need to be applied. So for example, when we went to virtual, it was therapists saying, well, I don't know how to do client-centered care in this environment because I would normally let them pick the game and do things of that nature. So we had to add in a toggle so you can give the client control or take that back to be able to do it. Similarly, we have therapists that said at the beginning, we mostly watch the kid. We're not really focused on, the Monopoly board. So I don't want to see more of that. I want to see more of the kid. And so we had to create the ability to change the ratio of the screen of what you want to see. So for us, it's not always just about making sure it's there or it's compliant. It's translating it to understanding the nuance in making it really meaningful and useful for those sensitivities. And so AI is a perfect example of that. AI is something that I am very, very, very scared of for many reasons, but I know that it has tremendous value. And so for us, the AI storybook creation tool was the first application of that because it gives us the opportunity to understand the edge cases. So for something like that, we have to not just take what exists and then set rules on it, but then set exception to those rules. So we can't say no guns or violence when we're in the US dealing with people that have trauma from gun violence. But so nothing can be absolute in therapy. And there has to be the ability for that exception, but we have to be thoughtful and considerate of how we do that. And so we're right now scoping the ability, because we've heard therapists say we want to bring the storybook builder in session to create together. And so we're right now going through, anyways, the product development and testing of that, where there would then have to be a filter, like a review from the therapist before. And it's just, it's the thoughts and consideration that go around that. And so, yeah.
Matt and Leslie, I'm wondering if you can answer Judy's question. She was saying it's commercially driven rather than therapy need driven. I think, Matt, you sort of touched on that slightly. She asked to be enlightened. And I know, Leslie, you put a comment in, but I wanted it as a group thing because I think sometimes with new tech, with services like your own, like PlaySpace, I think lots of therapists do think, well, this is about the money. And I think your approach is very, very different. So if you and Leslie could talk on that a bit more and talk about why it isn't just purely commercially driven and the benefits and the nuances for therapists. And again, just thinking about adult working as well. So if you work with children and adults, how this could be useful. You're welcome, Judy.
Absolutely. Well, I'm wondering if it might be a good time to take a 10-minute break as well. Get a fresh cup of tea, maybe have a few more thoughts, any more questions around those sorts of themes. Yeah, me and Matt can just sort of.
And that gives us time because that was a loaded one, Judy.
Yeah, just get a go straight in there. But yes,
I like that.
questions as well. That we can just pop onto the chat. Anything that comes to mind, please do drop it in there because yeah, I'm looking forward to a really meaty time of like grilling Matt on half of this stuff.
And nothing's off limits. I'll answer anything. This is really meant to be open. I know many companies are like, or don't welcome that, but this is like, we're trying to change the conversation. So we have to have the one you guys want to have.
And I'm collating all the comments and questions and putting your names by them so I can read them out accurately. So please pop them into the chat.
So should we aim to sort of come back at about 8 o'clock? Would that be long enough just to
8 minutes to boil the kettle and
yeah.
Okay, fine.
Brilliant.
Harsh.
Right, we'll see you all back at 8.
So there are some platforms that are specific, very specific in nature, whether it's a social emotional learning activity or program, whether it's and there's what I call point solutions, where they're very, very focused and serve a purpose. What we're trying to do is to create that environment that allows you to have it serve your needs. And so that's where the whole idea of partner versus build comes into play, because I don't need to necessarily create all of the tools that you would use with an adult, but it's about properly incorporating those into the platform such that the experience is tailored to how you would use it and tailored to how adults would want to engage and experience it. That's important. And so that's where in the playroom we have now, we actually have 3 options. One internally we call child, one internally we call teen, and one internally we called adult, just because they are more like just the look and feel. And so moving forward, maybe it's not even about a room at all. Maybe it's just about a few of the types of activities, because the room as a whole is too, young, right? And so those are the types of insights sort of we're looking to glean. And I'm just going to skip ahead for a second to Catherine's question, because it ties into this. Making it user-friendly and simple is the crux of adoption. And that is what's necessary for change and impact. And so what I would say is, to start, support is the main piece of this. No one is saying, oh, this is a great virtual playroom, let me switch out my existing virtual playroom. This is a new concept that has to be applied, and everyone practices differently. And so making sure that we have amazing support day one, such that you feel confident and comfortable, and whether that means trying with our support first and doing sessions to experience it, or we have some self-serve tools and resources that you can do, that's one piece. But the reason I'm bringing this question up now is because this also is why we're having this conversation. Because Catherine, you might be like my therapist who wants that user-friendly piece, but I don't know that I'm credentialed or experienced to be able to inform the insights necessary for it to be user-friendly for you. And so I'm going to acknowledge right now that our platform to some is very user-friendly and intuitive, and others, there's a learning curve. And so it's how can we engage you to contribute to what isn't intuitive or what is complex, and then we can streamline that. We know now, for example, that having no playrooms right when you start is not makes no sense and is confusing to a lot of people, and that there need to be some that are there to iterate upon, to try out, and to just understand. And so we're working on it's a workflow where it asks you a few questions when you sign in, and over time, then it'll create a couple sort of templates for you to work off of. And that was an insight we got from people that say, I love the customization of the room. I love all these games and activities, but to go through and to know what to click and it'd be helpful to have some of these. So that was an insight from users that contributed that, and we need more of that. And so Catherine, either it's you engaging and telling us what is not user-friendly, or it's you explaining some of the hardships to your peers who might be able to understand that, interpret it, and then communicate that in a way where we can, meaningfully address that concern.
I think there's a whole culture in that, Matt. Just sort of hearing you talking about that, and I guess I'm kind of thinking about my own experience over the last sort of couple of years of just sort of looking at new ideas and opportunities and games and stuff, and just thinking, oh my gosh, how am I going to bring that into my practice? And people saying, but it's easy, Leslie, and you can just do this and you can just do that, and just thinking, nah, it's not for me, and so I just won't. Or different people developing apps and saying, oh, can you just test this and can you just do that? And I'm thinking, where's the catch? Where is the catch in that? And what you're presenting is this sense of like, actually, I'm not looking for a catch. I'm not looking to sort of trip you up. I'm not looking to make this so that you can't access it because you don't know how to use it, or because you're frightened of trying a new game, or there is no catch on this. In fact, you can tell us where it's just too hard to engage with this. I'm looking to know if this is too hard. I want to know. I'm not looking to exclude you because of that. I'm looking to include you and, in fact, develop something that is accessible to you. And I think that's something that may take a little while for us to kind of take in, and to really believe and trust that we can try something out, that it's not looking to catch us out. It's not looking to make us feel sort of really anxious and nervous, because, you know, we've got our own thoughts and feelings about even trying out some of this technology, even trying out some of the games and things. It's really, I think we've had quite a hard time, and maybe I'm making a sort of sweeping generalization, but just that sense of getting on board with tech is terrifying at times. I know certainly my conversations and things that I have with all sorts of people looking to develop and looking to say, well, I want to engage with you because you are a therapist and I need to know all about this. And I think one of the questions, you know, in the chat earlier on, that says it's also sort of business orientated and money orientated, and we're so used to thinking, you're only talking to me because there's a profit in it for you. So, you know, where do I really fit into this? Where am I finding the time in amongst my client work, in amongst my work, to talk to you about something you're just going to go off and make money from? And that sort of disparity, that sort of lack of trust, makes it sometimes really hard to accept, actually, this is something that you're offering to me that is, there's no catch in it. You're not looking to make money off me through doing this. It's like, really? So I think there's a sort of almost a learning curve in that, to really trust that this is as good as it sounds, as good as it looks.
And it's an interesting, that's a very good point. And I actually had it in the presentation as a topic to discuss earlier, but, you know, just given time, we didn't. But this is where understanding the purpose, the ethos, the approach of the organization matters. Because if an organization, let's just say, was just bought by private equity, I'm not saying all private equity is bad here, but when you think about this, they're buying something that's a profitable asset. They're either going to cut costs, increase price, like they're maximizing revenues. And then the idea is they have to sell it within a certain period of time so that they can post a return in their fund. They can't keep this for 20 years and be on a journey with you. They have to be in and out of this investment within 3 to 5 years, maybe 7 if they have a long hold, because they have to then give the return. And so therapy is not going to change in 3 years. Like, it's not going to be the answer that solves all your problems in 3 years. We're not going to get, you know, reimbursements or payment rates increasing 100%, you know, in a short period. And so that's where it's really important that there's an understanding that the effort that you're going to contribute is like being appreciated, and not to waste that, because I can promote this initiative and then you can continue to be taken advantage of by others for, you know, engaging in that. And that's where it's really important. And with us, we've not taken money from investors that have asked us to be a provider because they want top line growth. And again, they would rather us get $200 of revenue for your hour, or whatever it is, pounds, apologies. But, and then, you know, even if we have to only keep, you know, let's call it $50 of that, because they want us to have all of that revenue in our income statement. Where,
Matt, could I ask a question? I just want to bring it back a little bit into what Judy was saying. And a lot of our members at ACTO work in a very traditional way, you know, video, telephone, email. They're interested in using something like this, but they're not sure how or why it would be. I think Judy's question is why, and person-centered, yes, Judy, and why it would be useful at this time for them in their practice. And I think if we could kind of bring it back to that, because I think then people can start seeing, how can I use this, who are not super techie and their clients don't necessarily want to be super techie, but, you know, I can certainly see how storytelling could work with some of my adult clients, you know, how it could fix into that. So if we could kind of look at that aspect of it, like the commercial side, I think is really, really interesting. And I love the community side, bringing us together as a force, so that actually we're not getting underpaid. Our voices do matter. It isn't just commercially run. But I think for therapists, Leslie said it earlier, there is a point of lots of people come into this as a vocation. So people are thinking, okay, me today, why is this useful?
Yeah, and so and let's talk about that. There's two categories, sorry, there's two segments that I want to touch on, and I want to touch on them separately. One is, what is the sort of clinical benefit? And the other one is why, as a business person and or practice, you should enact this to grow your practice and or improve your practice. The first one is the clinical piece. We have a couple problems. One is there is an access issue for children and teens in accessing therapy. It's not accessible. Much of this is due to geographic limitation. So 80% of US counties do not have a regulated child mental health professional. Canada is a larger landmass with a much smaller population. It's worse. We don't have the stats, at least we don't, like, from someone that I would consider credible across the UK. But the point is that it's not accessible. So we're not moving someone from New York City to rural Idaho to be able to treat that patient. And so we have to be able to serve them where they are. That's one thing. The other thing is that it's not just about that there's not the access. Part of the access is not geographic, it's actually capacity. And that's what I was speaking to before. There's way more demand than there is supply. So the question is, how do we increase supply? And how do we do so immediately to have impact? And unfortunately, to become a PhD or a master's or what have you is not something that can be fixed tomorrow. And we're not launching all these new programs in schools with more graduating students to be able to meet capacity. And so that means that if you go home for the day at 5 p.m., and you cannot treat a child after dinner because you're not in your clinic, then you're not able to capitalize on your own capacity, and we're not able to build capacity. When you're traveling or when you're away, or if a child, now it's summer, there's a lot of children that are now no longer where they were during the year and might be away and traveling, and there's still that need to engage. Similarly with you, it's cottage season now in Ontario, and so we have people that go north to cottage country, and they want to be able to stay there for a week and still work remotely and see their patients. And so what we're trying to do is say, hey, you can meet people where they are. Also, I don't think the rain would be maybe as big a barrier, but certainly when it snows, cancellations are immediate. People will not drive when it snows, and especially if they're coming long distances, which oftentimes they are. So this is where the whole conversation, and I see hybrid being discussed, comes into play, because now when it snows, we get people reaching out to use this, but then they haven't used it before. So now they have to learn it and use it for that instance to be able to keep everything they have that day and not lose all that income. And so this is where we need to change the conversation to truly hybrid, because it can't be that virtual is different than in person. It has to be that there's some continuity between it, and both for the patient experience, but also the provider competency. If you're able to use the platform when you're with the child, and even for a couple experiences like, I don't know, the sand tray, or like some of the other games that we have that might be better, then when it comes to virtual or remote sessions, both you and the child have some familiarity and comfort with that, and it translates well. And so there's that piece on the clinical side and the competency side that's really important. But then there's the business side of this, which is that if you operate a clinic where you have to have a person in a room with a patient, then you're limited to that room and to those constraints. And moreover, you're motivated to realize the most from your investment in your hard costs. So if you're have an office, let's say, with a clinic that you're in person with, and you're paying rent on that, if you only do a few sessions, that doesn't make sense. So you're trying to optimize the use of that room that you're paying rent on as much as possible. And if you're a clinic, that's your limit, that's your rate limiting factor. So this is where, for example, we're working, it is the largest clinic network in the world, and they have many franchises. And why they're interested in this is for a number of reasons. One, before they open the franchise, they can now start actually acquiring patients who otherwise would be on wait lists and happy to do virtual, knowing that it might get in person. That's going to be an option while they're waiting, and start building their patient pipeline such that when they open, now they don't open it and hope people come, but they're able to get full utility of their investment. Two, they're able to now hire people for remote and create things or create protocols or processes that optimize for remote. If you're doing, let's say, I don't know, a 15-minute or 30-minute consult per se, just to explain to someone or educate them, that might not need a room, and that might only be virtual. And so if you have a process where we do these assessments virtually or these things virtually, maybe we have virtual providers, now you're not limited to how many offices you have. You're now limited to how many people you can actually bring into your network and support. And that allows you to grow your business without the costs. And that's what we're trying to employ. We don't want to have the costs to go from state to state or country to country and have providers available in languages at every time, across conditions, this, that, and I'm not interested. And if you're trying to serve many folks and grow, you have to do the same thing. What we're trying to do is say, how can we now provide the technology and the tools and now even hardware that's needed such that that can happen, essentially independently and on its own and productively. And that's where also reducing cancellations, working in evenings or off hours and being able to accommodate those things. And so it's really just, how can you work smarter rather than harder?
Yeah.
And that's really what this is about.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
And Leslie, you were gonna.
Yeah, I was just sort of thinking, even just sort of bringing it down to something which is on a smaller scale. So without looking at sort of numbers of clinics even, and but thinking certainly for those of us who are in private practice, so we have to hold a lot of that just for ourselves on a much sort of smaller scale. But I guess I'm sort of thinking, well, even in my virtual playroom, which it's a kind of, well, as it sounds, a virtual space. I don't have the same sort of use of a platform, but I have a number of apps and tools. I have to think for myself, what am I going to invest in? Oh, I like that game. I have to do all the research. I have to do all the thinking. I have to sort of learn how to use it. I have to have the subscription. And so when I add up how much I have to spend on the apps and tools that I use in my virtual space and my sort of practice, in comparison to all of the things that could be available, say, on your platform, I think I haven't had to spend on individual subscriptions for all of those. I get to try it out without having to commit to a freemium, which doesn't have the level of, say, security that I want. I mean, I've always got that sort of toss up of like, do I want to invest in, I don't know, £20 a month, say, in something that I really like? And suppose my clients don't want to use it, and I'm left with it with a year subscription with something that I can't drop. It is a big investment. So having something where I can jump in and think, I can try that out, I can plan some sessions and really think whether this is going to be appropriate for that client. And I can think about the whole mentality of using it without the huge risk, for me, is an absolute no-brainer.
And what I'll say is that it's important to really consider and really take a look at the costs of the business and not just the perceived switching costs. And I say that because this is not about trying to get the most dollars out of each practitioner. And that's the difference between us and other companies, is that we are trying to build something that serves therapists, but that is scalable and can be profitable. And for it to be profitable, it doesn't mean that you guys have to lose for us to win. It's that this is software. Software is a profitable product. Zoom that we're on right now, if we're all paying for the subscription, it's not like us being on this now, like it costs them any more. It doesn't. And so it really is a high margin product. And that's where, investors with us have been very concerned from day one, because we've never been willing to go over $40 USD for everything in PlaySpace. There's the managed stuff as well, but that's besides. And moreover, that we discounted a lot, and we don't really have any plans to increase. And I say that because therapists that we spoke to day one were telling us that they actually, like, art supplies have gone up in price a lot. Kids ruin dolls and board games, which also are expensive. And so there's already an art budget that many of these individuals have. And now the whole concept of software is additive, but they're looked at independently when really it is it's the collective cost that you have. And so this is where it's interesting to be able to say, like, is this cost going to actually not just replace an existing subscription, but is there something else that I'm doing in my practice where there's expenses and things that this can benefit? And so it's not just about this serves the patient that can't come in. It's, can I now do this after dinner and maybe even speak to parents? And this is also when you speak about adults, forms, papers, exercises, outcome measures, to be able to get those and collect those together. We have therapists that get a consent form signed before they ever see the child virtually from the parent before, and you to do that all in one environment as if you were in person, and maybe have them do these questionnaires prior to the like, that is where then it goes to adult. But I just wanted to say that, yeah, it's really, there's a lot of other expenses that people have, and this is where we need to think about that. And that's where the table comes into play, and the tablet. I mean, we have therapists that are spending, iPads are a fortune. I mean, they are. TV, like, things are a lot of money. And so that's where we're saying, if you're going to get a coffee table and you're going to maybe get an iPad or put a TV or do something like that, like, why, we're not making money, why not just allow you to do something like this and replace that cost and, yeah, make it better. So we're trying to think a bit differently in that.
Karen, I know, sorry, you had your...
Oh, yeah. Sorry.
That's all right.
Yeah, I guess as an adult therapist and a Gestalt orientated therapist that worked face to face before the pandemic happened, and then trained and went online, I use imagery work a lot. I use dream work a lot. I like having blank canvases for clients to use colour and things to describe how they're feeling, or to draw stuff, and it looks like PlaySpace Health can sort that out for me in that sense. So I am
Sure.
a little bit of a tech phobe, I suppose. I'm more traditional than whatever. But since having the meetings with you guys and being on today, I am really hooked. I'm really interested in being able to be true to my modality in a way that I haven't been able to before. And a lot of Gestalt therapists do not work online. And that annoys me. but you can work online. You can have a meaningful relationship online. I only work online now. I don't do face-to-face for several reasons. And this, as Leslie said earlier, having everything under one roof, so to speak, so I don't have to go off and get loads of other things, is, oh my word, yes, please. But I am also going, my income is not as much as your minimum income on your sheet at all. So I am thinking about cost and outlay, and going, but that's where I am.
For sure. And let me just say, what, like, for $40 a month, like, that's no, and that's not what, I mean, there's discounts and what have you, but just our MSRP for that. The idea is that if you can save one session, if you can add one, like, you're making, like, you're able to cover it. It's not meant to be prohibitive. And we even have, if you, let's say, sign up for the year up front, then it's 400, not 480. And so the idea is that it's trying to be that way. But what I'll say is that that's the point, is that it's for you to tell me when there's that ROI for you, and then when you have that willingness to pay. And it's for you to tell Leslie and me what you need, so Leslie can help translate that and work with us to do that. Not that you can't, but that's where we need that piece. And so it's collaborative, because I'm not going to say it's perfect for adults. Maybe you're going to tell me that it is. But if you're going to say that it's missing this, and I'd like to see this, okay, well, do we take that literally? Or there's some considerations in how you would do this in person that we want to layer in? And that's where someone like Leslie can speak potentially more of the language of our product like our product managers and engineers, to help translate it. And then it's in there. And that's also where beta space matters. Because, for example, we had a meeting with what is the only FDA approved diagnostic tool for autism in children's 1.5 to 6 years old. And most significantly, they're the only approved digital therapeutic that rules out autism on its own between ages 1.5 and 6. But when we're thinking about that business, they're building something that is making, like, they're building a drug, right? So there's a lot of R&D that goes into that, because it is, it's making a decision and it's making those insights. So they've had to spend so much money, and investors have had to already be on the ride to get them there. And now they're trying to commercialize. So the question is, do they go after all of you and then you get them and us and this, or do they come to us and say, hey, we're not in Canada because we don't want to be PIPEDA compliant, because you're too small. We're not here, like, we need your help to distribute because you have these individuals. And so it's for us to say, okay, great. In theory, this is right, but I'm not just going to put it on the menu and hope that people order it. It's about how do we incorporate this, and what is the considered way to do so. And now that can be. And so I say that because we're speaking to a pharma company in the US that wants to use this as part of their patient support program for people with dementia, because they use a lot of games and immersive experiences in geriatric individuals. And so we're going, okay, what do you need? We can throw it in beta space quick and dirty. We can develop it in a refined way and then add it to our paid product. But that's the idea. We want to protect the paid product as something that you are willing to pay for. And beta space is where we throw things in and refine until it gets to that point where it's actually meaningful. It's not adding complexity. It's being integrated in a thoughtful way, and it's something that people are willing to pay for.
Could I ask a question on behalf of Pamela? I know, Leslie, you had your hand up, but we haven't had an audience question for a while. So Pamela had said she was wondering how sophisticated the play space is for adults. She's worked with university students for many years, some of who are game designers, and she's unsure as how they would relate to the platform. So could you speak? Oh, Leslie, you want to tackle that? Go ahead.
I'm wondering if it's worthwhile us really taking these questions on, and rather than trying to come up with an answer that is in our heads, to think, actually, why don't we take the platform? Why don't we take the beta space and play with it with these questions in mind, to think, how would my clients relate to this? Because I can just sort of imagine, I work with children and not adults. So I'm sitting there thinking, okay, how would an adult relate to this? I do work with some sort of parents and families and stuff. And I'm thinking, we've got an opportunity to take those questions really seriously. Say, okay, let's get our hands on the platform. Let's think about our clients, the university students. Let's think about the sort of the people who are game designers. Maybe use it with them. Maybe answer those very same questions. Get them to answer it rather than us imagining it. It's an
Or if there are concerns that you have when you're looking at this about that, raise them and let's see if there's then some consideration. And that's exactly where these focus groups and what beta space is about.
Rather than sort of, having a sort of a potted answer that may or may not answer your questions for your clients. It's an opportunity to feed back into the answer, to actually generate the answer and say, actually, I've used this and I've had a chance to play with it. and to think about it myself and think, yeah, this would work for them, or actually, no, this wouldn't, and to feed it back into the conversation. So to help us all to answer that question, I think we should take these really, really seriously, but I don't think we'll do it justice by just us all trying to find a potted answer to it right now. I think, right, but certainly the adults that I work with, if I can simplify those games, the sort of thinking, the sand tray, because I think sand trays get used across the board.
So I was just going to say, we actually, the reason that we even got into the whole hardware in person was because we were initially, this is for remote, and we were trying to solve the remote access and effectiveness problem. But one of our customers is a university counseling center in Tennessee, and they started using the sand tray in person on iPads with their students, which led us to go, wait, like, that's the online hybrid offline. And so I've just said, like, they are using it. But again, then we've suggested that to a different counseling center that said to them, you know, it looked a little bit too elementary for them. And, you know, they wanted to see something a little more mature for their students. And that's where it's, okay, that's a good piece of consideration that we need to apply to this. And anyways, those layers of thought that people have, whether they've engaged or they have concerns, if we can have an environment or an area or the means or relationships to be able to work through those and actually process them, as you're saying, Leslie, really in a considered way, then we can actually get to an answer that addresses it, maybe at first, or maybe then through iteration thereafter.
Yeah. Does that sort of even sort of scratch the surface of answering your question, Pamela? I can't see you on the screen. Where's Pamela? Just say, 'cause it's such an important, I think that's at the heart of how am I going to be able to use this with my clients? Are they going to really relate to this? Do I want to take that sort of spend the time and the energy and the effort learning how to use this if it's not going to relate to my clients? That's at the heart of our sort of decisions with tools and things. And I think us being involved in having the answers to that is a new position for some of us as practitioners, actually being allowed to be involved in saying to somebody who produces these tools, yes, it works, or no, it doesn't. This does not work for my clients. I don't see how it's working. And for someone to be listening to the answer to that, and to be open to hearing, and maybe developing something that takes your answers very seriously as well, and to know that you've been part of that, rather than a solution-driven, yes, I can guarantee this is going to work for your clients, and so therefore pick it up and use it tomorrow. This is a different way of relating that I guess that we're sort of that I feel really excited about being part of, being able to sort of influence. So yeah, I think that there will be something.
It's also the confidence in your own perspective. It's, if you feel that way, it doesn't matter if no one else practices that way and we built it for everyone else. You still practice this way, and there's no reason we can't meet you where you are. And that's what you need to be able to do this, and setting that expectation and forcing someone like us to be able to accommodate that. And otherwise we then get to steamroll over, and it's, oh, well, everyone else does this. Oh, and then you go, well, what, maybe then I need to adapt. And but that doesn't happen in rooms. In a clinic, you do what you want to do. Or sorry, in a room, in a therapy room, you do what you want to do. Of course, there's protocols and such, but my point is, it's up to you. It's not listening to me of what someone's doing over here in Toronto that's going to inform what you're going to do with that child. So why is it the same thing with a platform that I'm saying, well, because they do this now, you should? It really has to have that nuance. And if we haven't captured your unique perspective, then we need to make sure that it's considered somewhere. And if you're going to move off that perspective and not have the confidence to drive it forward and say that's important, then why am I going to take that seriously? And that's, I think there's, some people don't have the confidence with technology, don't necessarily know how to translate, and then feel nervous potentially about making some statements and being firm on it. And the reality is, if you're firm on something, we do it, and then you want it changed, well, that's iteration. Like, we could get it right and need to change it just as well. Like, you can be wrong and mislead us. You guys have been misled and taken advantage of since I've been alive. I mean, that's the reality of the situation. And so that's where it's about how do we change the terms, and no wrong answer, but everything is valid and considered and, you know, processed.
So Judy wants to know figures. Okay, she's kind of like, we've sold her the concept, Matt. She wants to know figures here. What's it going to cost? What's she getting for the money? Rose, thank you so much. Bring some brass tacks. We want to talk money now. What's the bottom line now? What can people expect for the money? And
So let me just say, ACTO beta space is free for you, clinic members. I mean, of course, they have to be ACTO members and approved by ACTO to be admitted, but the point is, whether it's you or your clinics, that is free, and that has everything on it. For your clinics, like or individual and or private practice, ACTO secured a 30% discount, but there also is a trial, a free trial to do it. And so it's 23 pounds monthly, or if you pay annually, there's 2 months that get taken off. So it's 230 pounds for the year. And the idea is this is a bit more than Zoom, and it then costs a bit more than Zoom. And that's where we're at. This is not about, can we charge 100? Can we charge 200? Like, that's not the intention here. It's, can we as a business be profitable because of our operations serving you at a reasonable price? And it's not the other way around. So and I should say, if there's issue, like if people need accommodation with things, we are more than happy to work with you. It's not about trying to take advantage of this or add expenses that don't deliver ROI to you or your practice. But with that said, I sold my condo to keep this thing going, and now we're fortunate to have some investors that are coming, and including the second largest children's hospital in Canada, and some great things. But not everything can be free, because then I will never make a salary, and one day I want to make one again. So it's not just about that. We have to invest in the product. We have to do these types of things. And when we show that people are willing to pay and support, that helps. And so it's not about trying to get as much, but it's trying to show that there is a willingness to pay, even if you say it's worth less to you, we can make it less and adopt. And then when it gets there, then we'll be able to capture what we think it's worth. But until then, we'll get paid at least what others believe it's worth. And it's important that we show as a business that progress to support our own sustainability. And again, this is also, there's so much excitement around sometimes some new things or innovative things, and there's so much that goes to that. But then it's not sustained. And so companies then aren't able to keep up, and then they obviously either start cutting corners, increasing costs, or ultimately don't serve their customers. We're really like, we haven't taken investors that have promoted bad things. We're really trying to build this properly so we don't have any external pressures and we can focus on our mission. And that's also, we're hoping the power of the community that support us is what carries this mission forward ultimately.
Okay, Catherine had a question. She said, you mentioned autism. Karen, I'm going to come to you after. You mentioned autism just now. I wonder whether there are games or versions of your existing games designed specifically with neurodiversity in mind. If so, that would be fabulous, e.g. colours, lowered risk of overload from busyness, etc.
It's an amazing question. And I'm going to say we have not implemented those considerations in the platform. This is something where, like, we've been focused very specifically on, like, general, what I would say is behavioral health, and less of neurodivergent, learning disability, primary care, chronic conditions, speech, OT, and some of the other therapeutic areas. But that's sort of the point. We recognize now there's the opportunity to expand into that. And in doing so, there's now all these considerations. And so, yes, there's things like colors, brightness, what the activities are, what they're seeing, if you make it child-centered, what the limitations are to that in that environment. Yeah, there's a lot more that needs to happen there. And we don't have that implemented yet. And we'd love to hear what those are.
Thank you. But it's good you're considering it. And I'm guessing the focus group and the beta groups are where you're going to be gaining that information. So if Catherine wants to join some of that, then that's where we can do the testing and adding the information and trialing it out and things like that. Because I think we need to sort of bring it back to why we're sort of doing this tonight. Like it's, yes, there's a product, but there's a product that we want to develop that's beneficial to our members, right? And beneficial to people who want to work and incorporate a lot of what you're offering. And that is for all parts, all cohorts of our clients. And here in the UK, and I'm sure it's global as well, you know, neurodiversity, the neurodiversity community is leading the language, is informing the rest of the population about what's been lacking. And I think if you can engage with that at this stage, that will help us as practitioners, ensuring that we're inclusive in working with all parts of our society and our community. So sorry, Karen, I know you had your hand up, so I'm going to shut up.
Matt, when we did a call earlier in the month, we ended up going to a second platform. So I guess what I'm trying to sort out in my own head is, if I have PlaySpace Health as my platform, do I need Zoom as well?
No, and so this is where the considerations come into play. Just as one case study on this, so an engineering and a product team would say, okay, like therapists that are relying on this, it's for those instances they can't do, like let's say in person, maybe day one. And so this is their backup and this is their insurance. Well, then I don't know if people had the experience where Zoom maybe isn't working, but Google Meet does, or this one does, and you know, worked an hour ago and now it's just being weird, and that happens. And so what we realized is we don't have the opportunity to now troubleshoot with you to see what's wrong when you're supposed to be with this child in this session. So making a perfect video is not the answer, because it's never going to be perfect. And when it's not, that interrupts the session. And so we have a rule at the company that anything that interrupts a session, like that is the hard line. Anything that disrupts a session is inexcusable, period. Like if it makes me mental, and it's just, we can't do that. And I say that because for us, what we heard is, well, then I'll just use my Zoom. If it's not working, it's fine. But then you have to pay for Zoom. And now you have us and Zoom. And so you have to have a backup for your backup. And that makes no sense. So what we've done, and we actually did this, it's done now. I think it's going to be released maybe, I don't know, I'm looking at them, maybe next week. But we've now incorporated a backup video solution integrated into our platform already. We've actually incorporated Zoom as well as another one. And so now you can toggle, like, let's say this one's not, you just open that one, but it's all on the same platform. So we can serve that. And that's where that insight was not a product-driven insight. That was very much understanding how, like, the details and the nuances of the challenge that a therapist has in that moment. And that's how we need to approach this. And so the idea is that PlaySpace will be that, or if it's not, it will be integrated into what you're using. And I say that because we started building practice management, so billing, scheduling, website, all of that, and integrating Play to show how it needs to be together. But the reality is, I don't want you to have to learn a new practice management platform if you're using it. And I don't want to have to make it harder. And so that's where we are speaking to all, like, you name it, we're speaking to them, like the simple practices, I mean, there's many of them where they don't want to build this themselves, and they're looking to expand their revenue and serve their customers. So we're saying, why not just bolt this on to your existing practice management and make it accessible? Now, until we're able to integrate properly with each one, it means that PlaySpace is still separate from the main practice management. Not that we don't have our own, but it's separate. But the idea is that PlaySpace is meant to be that all-encompassing piece. And that's where, when I talk about autism and saying we're not, like, we don't have that, it's because I want to be sure, like, we are ready now with the behavioral health side. Not that it needs to be improved, but we have that. These other areas are areas that we are expanding, and every day we will act on it, but we need the support to help inform what that is. And I'm not going to say that we do something or it's ready. until we've tested it and we know, and we're early days in that. So this is where the collaboration, the focus groups and beta space is important, because we're starting to apply, like we found a few companies, we've negotiated terms, and now it's about, okay, how do we bring it together in that experience where, again, the colors, the sensitivities, the sounds, that's another thing we've heard. Right now, there are some games that actually have sound like that recently have come on without them being turned on, and that can be startling to people. And so it has to be that they're not. Anyways, these are the nuances that we have to adapt to.
And I can certainly see how across ACTO, so certainly thinking about neurodivergence, certainly as you started talking about that, Catherine, just that sense of our special interest groups around neurodivergence, so not just autism and ADHD and just sort of a whole spectrum of neurodivergence, how we could have some focus groups, obviously based on the tech side of things, to think, well, yeah, I'm interested in from a technology point of view, but actually taking beta space into some of our other ACTO areas to be able to say, could you, neurodivergence group, test beta space purely from the angle of neurodivergence?
And I should just say quickly that in beta space, you're actually going to have access to not just PlaySpace, but the practice management platform practice space that we built as well. And it's not with the intention that people adopt our practice management, because we are not wanting to be in the practice management business. We want to focus on these experiences. But the reason that's there is because if individuals have insights as to how this integrates in ours or how it would integrate in yours, and or you can use any of those features and provide advice, that's important. And so, for example, the papers section and the form section, we've been getting a lot of feedback of how to take that and actually bring that into the session in a much more robust way. And so we've, in beta space, just made all of that available. But this is where, when we're integrating with your practice management platform, we need to make sure that if we're going to say what the terms are and hold to it, that we know that those are the terms that you want. And ultimately, when I meet with that practice management platform, you're not in the room. And so we need to know going into it what we're fighting for that integration, because to us, we could just call it an integration, say whatever, be a reseller, and we make money off each other. It doesn't actually need to be a good experience for the users, and it doesn't need to be tightly integrated. But if we know that our success is predicated on that, and we know what to fight for, then we will do that. And we've been doing so far. So that's the other piece to say as well, just with beta space.
Thank you, Matt. Do we have any more questions? Leslie, I'm just looking at the time.
Yes, yeah. I was just thinking if there were any other sort of questions that we just wanted to think
I should
about.
also just say ACTO, we don't have a date yet, but ACTO's already negotiated a discounted rate off even what we're getting at cost for the hardware when that launches. And so that will also be something, if people want to be able to test and engage with and contribute to, ACTO has secured that. It's just, we're still going through our test of the samples, and then we have to get our orders, and then we'll do it. But we need to make sure that it's at that point. But that'll be something too down the line that again bridges the hybrid environments and allow people to create. In our view, it's how do we create attractions in person, so things that people don't have at home, and that is exciting. When people have an iPad, they like those. Sometimes people like those games and that, but to now have a table or a screen to be able to engage with attractions, and then how to make remote care engaging and accessible through that same seamless, consistent experience. And there was actually out of the UK a study where it was something like 80-something% of kids said that online was not real therapy. Or therapists said it was not real therapy. And if they go, oh, well, it's the same thing I did in person. It was just, we did it on Zoom. Now it's not different and separate. It's really that online to offline approach. And the last thing I'll say on that, and because that's also coming out, is we've been talking about sand play a lot. But this is where, how do we bring this into the in-person piece and really create that hybrid model? So we're partnering with Spin Master. They have something called kinetic sand. So we're bringing kinetic sand into the sand tray in a number of ways. But one of the things that we're building is you could take a photo with a phone or a tablet or computer of what you've created and then actually add it to your sand tray so that you can save it and keep it and do things. And this way you can engage in person and still have that, but then carry it forward to other sessions and create that online piece and that digital piece that's also cool to them and exciting. So these are the types of things that we've also heard. A VR sand tray would be very cool for in person. Anyways, there's lots to explore there, but I just want to say that because that one we actually are building already. But we need to think more about this. And so we're hoping with the focus groups, that is really the takeoff of this. And we can parlay that to see what other areas of need or what other streams of conversation need to happen.
Thank you, Matt. That's great. Leslie, do you have anything to end with?
I'm just full and itching to play with even just
You want to scream?
what we've talked about now. So yeah, I could talk all night. So no, I'm going to just sort of leave it there and just sort of, yes, I'm feeling very full and very grateful to be here to hear about so many lovely opportunities. And I'm hoping there'll be lots of other people who are equally excited to come and join and play and yes, yeah.
And if I could just say thank you to ACTO and everyone, we are so appreciative to be here and have this opportunity, and we will make the most of it, and we will listen and we will iterate and we will build and hopefully prove that you guys can be heard and show that in action. But this is the first step of that, and we are so appreciative that you guys are giving your time to us for this. So I just wanted to say thanks.
No, thank you, Matt, and your whole team. You've done incredible amounts of work, and I think giving ACTO members, he's waving to his team, giving ACTO members and others the chance to kind of engage. And I think it's really helpful because it's shown us that no matter where you are in terms of your creativity and how you use online working in the ways in which your modality adapts to it, that this is something that we can incorporate in practice, and we have a chance to play with it and get familiar with it and tell Matt what absolutely doesn't work and what does. And I think, you know, things like
or without an answer, unafraid to ask a question and let us contribute.
Thank you. So I just wanted to say, I've put it in the chat. If you're interested in volunteering, writing blogs, being part of the focus group, please be part of the focus group, the beta group, and being a member of ACTO. The link is in the chat. We will send CPD certificates for attending, so please ensure that you obtain yours. And we have the conference in November. ACTO conference is in November, which is exciting. So save the date, 9th of November. All inquiries to Karen. Thank you for joining us on a Thursday afternoon, evening, morning, from wherever you are. And we've loved having PlaySpace Health, and this is the first step, as Matt said, I think, in developing our practice and moving as an online community together, and in ensuring that we have the right technologies as practitioners for our